How would you like to go from trauma to resilience? We have a very interesting duo that will tell us all about that. Colleen and Dana, and they are the Digital Dojo. Dana, with his background in martial arts and coaching, developed the Black Belt Mind, a technique that applies simple, actionable choices to all aspects of life. And Colleen, a TCM practitioner and trauma healing expert, created your integral medicine and the new agreement process, blending science, emotion, and spirituality to guide healing and personal transformation. Now, tell us, please, about how does someone go from having trauma to finding the courage to have resilience in their life instead?
Heal Podcast with Lily Patrascu shares longevity and anti-aging techniques to stay young forever, increase energy, overcome addiction, and live your longest, best life ever. Shared by world's most innovative, alternative, and traditional health thought leaders, healers, and doctors. Discover quantum healing strategies to heal your mind, body, and soul.
I think Dana is a great one to ask to actually answer that. I'm going to give you a very short answer, which is if you have survived trauma, you already have the courage. And then I'll let you explain more.
Super. Yeah, you really struck the key word there, Lily. Courage. Courage is the ability to move forward in the face of fear, because the thing that's on the other side of the fear is of greater value than the thing that's stopping you from moving through the fear. So when we work with all people from all walks of life, we find that restoration and that reconnection to their capacity for courage is the single most important factor in helping them move from trauma into triumph.
Thank you. How does someone have the impetus, the courage to kind of make that first step? Because, for example, as a trauma survivor myself, I find that there are moments in my life where I feel incredibly courageous. And to some extent, you could say a lot of people still haven't managed to make that step because they don't have the courage to move to a new country and to start a brand new life with zero. But for example, in other moments of life, I find myself not so courageous. And like, what's the opposite of courageous? I can't think of the word right now, but I find myself like a complete coward in other situations. And I feel like almost like in this freeze mode, where I have taken certain actions and I've tried my best and I've pushed really hard and I've people pleased and I've like tried every angle, and then I'm defeated. And where do I go from there?
Yeah, I'm going to let you do that one again because
you're reading my mind, Lily, because literally the word that I was going to use as the opposite of courage was cowardice. And it rolled off of your tongue the moment that I thought of it. So thank you. That's awesome. We've experienced everything that we do. It comes from our practical, applicable experience. So we've spent thousands and thousands of hours talking to people, working with people in teams, individually, families and companies. And we've distilled some common denominators around these dynamics that hopefully will be really clear and easy for me to share. When a person is disconnected from their self-worth, their self-worth is differentiated from your self-esteem. So your self-worth is your experience and your perception of your own value. The way we language self-esteem is that self-esteem is your perception of other people's perception of your value. So one is internal, one is very external. The moment that you are disconnected from your self-worth, which is what we work with as a definition for trauma, is a result of when that happens. So as soon as you get overwhelmed and are under-resourced and feel disconnected from your self-worth, that's a trauma. And it may not be a big T trauma like a plane crash or a loss of a loved one, but those little disconnections, those little T traumas from your self-worth debilitate your ability to feel connected to your value. Without your value, you do not feel like you can reach for your capacity for courage. So when we feel those moments of, think of the word cowardice, cowardly, it's cowering, right? We're shrinking back from life. We're removing ourselves from facing things. That in our world is the symptom and the consequence of a disconnection from your self-worth.
Thank you. I find that when I'm courageous, I feel like this force of nature. I feel like I'm massive, like I feel like
Yes.
to say something and the impact is huge. And then I also feel that in social media. And at other times when I'm cowardly and when I'm afraid and when I'm worried about what people think, I feel like I'm shrinking. I feel like I'm so small and I'm afraid I'm like this mouse that's trying to hide under a chair kind of thing. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering, how does someone kind of like increase their capacity for self-worth so that they're perceiving themselves as being worth more? Because, for example, for me, I feel really lucky. Like I'm very, very lucky. Okay, I'm luckier than most people, and I attract thousands of opportunities every year. And I'm sure if that's
Awesome.
what everybody attracts. I'm not sure. But I know that I do. Having said that, I find myself sabotaging hundreds
Mm.
of those opportunities. And sometimes it's because, let's say, I send a proposal late. Sometimes it's because I'm worried about what a client might think and I will send a proposal late. Sometimes it's because I'll just assume my speaking slot is guaranteed and I won't confirm the topic or. So I do certain things unconsciously and a little bit consciously, okay, to self-sabotage, where certain things don't pan out and certain things that are like mind-blowing experiences and situations and people that people would die to meet. Okay. And I mean, I have an idea where this comes from, where
Mm.
when I was really young, my grandma used to beat me and used to say I'm stupid, ugly, and fat. And then my
Mm.
dad left me when I was 3 and, didn't return. I think there's still this low self-worth concept that I have. And although you can say to the outside world, I'm this, I don't know, queen, there's still this inner child. There's still this girl inside of me that somehow still does this, like unconsciously, where I'm self-sabotaging a lot of opportunities and I'm not resilient and I'm cowardly and I'm afraid and because of that, I'm not fulfilling my full potential. So what would you do? What would you say to someone like that?
Mhm.
I have a quick answer. I have a medium answer, which is if there's one thing that I end up doing in the next couple of years, I want to, especially for women, but for everyone, remove the idea of self-sabotage because I don't actually believe in it anymore. I have been working in the clinic since 2007. I've never actually seen anybody self-sabotage in that entirety of time because what happens is that we will do whatever we need to do to survive. That's the priority over thriving, over something that's exciting, over something that we want. And when our brain gets us through that trauma, it sets it in as a pattern for us. And it says, you better work this out. You better do this enough times that this can be an automatic response for you. So no matter what happens, if that dangerous thing comes up again, you can handle it. No problem. You know, you're going to get through it. Okay. So when somebody feels like they're self-sabotaging, my and our instantaneous thing is great. Let's find the trauma that started that. And then we'll use the black belt mind. We'll use NAP, which is a technique that we've come up with. That's a really simple repeat after me technique. You can use talk therapy. People use journaling. We like ours because it's ours and because it's fast, but anything that you want to do for self-healing works. And you basically just go in and you, first of all, allow yourself that freedom to go, I'm not messing up here. There's some part of me that is so courageous, even in this moment, that it's doing something I don't want to do in order to help me through. And when you can switch that little flip from, oh, why am I screwing up again, to, wow, this is how much I love myself, that even when I dislike this feeling, I'm going to do this for myself to get through it, it becomes a lot easier to actually change the behavior.
Thank you. So tell us more techniques for someone to rewire their, I'm not sure what to call it, if not self-sabotage, the ways that they, put brakes into their, the way I guess their body is trying to self-preserve by not doing the actions they're supposed to take. What kind of like techniques are there for rewiring that and then turning it into empowering beliefs, empowering affirmations, I don't know, empowering things that you do to kind of like get yourself to do things regardless of not feeling like it.
Yeah. And I certainly don't mean to edit the words that you use. Please feel free to use whatever words, whatever words work for you. I have found in the clinic when people say they're self-sabotaging, it usually comes with the eye roll. It comes with a bit of a shrink. It comes with the feeling of here's how I'm screwing up. And that's the feeling that I get excited about helping people move. So there's two aspects, and that's why Dana and I work together so often and so well. So aspect number one is all the affirmations in the world, all the positive thinking in the world is not going to work when the trauma is still feeling active in your body. Because when that is happening, the amygdala, the fight or flight, the freeze part of your brain, which actually you had mentioned earlier, people pleasing, they are now realizing is part of that fight or flight response. They've added the concepts of fitting in and fawning over people, trying to make sure that people like us. Those are survival responses. Those are trauma responses. So when that response is still active and still needs to be worked out, then we can do all the happy thinking we want in the world. Our amygdala is still going to take over and say, that's nice. I need you to survive first. So step one to that is get the trauma out of your body. So some people use physiological means. There are trauma release exercises. David Berceli has a great book called The Revolutionary Trauma Release Process. Dancing, jogging, anything that you can do to activate from the psoas, sort of from the upper hip muscles on down, is going to get the old trauma chemistry out of your body. And it's a little bit slower if you're not doing it along with an emotional component and an awareness, but it's going to get it out. And a lot of times that's why people who've been through a lot of trauma become real demons at the gym, or they run 30 kilometers a day because they really are desperate to get out there and move, don't realize it. And then the second component is something like the black belt mind, which is where Dana comes in, which is allowing yourself a framework moving forward so you can take what you've learned and use it consciously to keep yourself safe and thriving as you move forward.
Thank you. Tell me more about the black belt mind technique.
Happily. First of all, I just want to say, Lily, by your authentic honesty and forthrightness, you're being tremendously courageous. And I have to point out that right as I'm experiencing it, because it's always very, very inspiring. Deeply moved by your sharing about your childhood and the traumas that you overcame. And I want to bring those up and explicitly acknowledge them, because I want you to, and it's a great reminder for us, a great reminder for your audience, I want you to recognize that someone else recognize what you're doing that's working. That's right. And we need to know what's going well. Oftentimes we focus on what's not going well, but we need to know what's going well in order to understand how we did it and then duplicate it, right? Under new conditions and circumstances as we get more expansive in the world. Sometimes our stress will go up, but if we have good tools, which is what the black belt mind is, we can make sure that we're expanding at the rate of our courage. So thank you for that example, and awesome job. I think you're being tremendously courageous, and I have to just tell you that. The black belt mind is a tool, just like a hammer or a wrench or a screwdriver that we use to make decision-making easier. Okay? It's a set of 7 principles that we can use like the reference points on a compass to make sure that we're moving in what I consistently refer to, and this is a martial arts idea, but it works in life as well, from our own alignment. So we can say that when we are aligned, our gut, our heart, and our head are all working together in the same direction. When we feel traumatized, when we get disconnected from one of those components and one of them is out of whack, we're not following our thinking, we're not following our feelings, we're not following our instincts, we are out of alignment. So when we get traumatized and we get disconnected from our self-worth, it becomes very, very easy to start pursuing the validation of others with an eye towards it being more valuable than our own validation. Nothing beats our ability and our experience of our own alignment. So the black belt mind is a compass. It's a tool that you can use that helps you navigate through the world and continue to remain responsive to the world as opposed to reactive. Because when we're reactive, All we can do is what's been done to us. So if someone gets angry, all we can do is get angry back. If someone scares us, all we can do is try to scare them back or cower in our own fear. When we're responsive, we land in the other C word around courage. That is really, really the next most powerful component to building our courage and experience our courage. It's choice. If we can remain connected to our values, to our self-worth, to our alignment, we will make better choices about anything that we encounter. And that over time, consistently, even in small ways, builds our connection to our self-worth, which makes it easier to access our courage, because believe it or not, courage is our natural state. It's not an anomaly. It's where we're born, it's where we live, it's where we truly come from. So it's only things that are traumatic, that disconnect us, that get in the way of us being able to see that clearly and to make choices based on the things that are most meaningful and valuable to us.
Thank you. I believe the world is scary. Now, I don't want that to be my experience, and I'm aware of the impact of believing that on the experience that I have of the world. Now, I came to London with 100 euros in my pocket 14 years ago. No, 20 years ago. And what I noticed was that I felt almost like an unfreezing, like of like my body, and like I felt like so energized, and I felt so appreciated, and everyone seemed to like me in London. I loved that, especially because Romania is very much like a country of models, like supermodels everywhere. So it's like very competitive. Everyone's talking about diets and everything. So as a relatively, not chubby necessarily, but, like medium average, weight, and not particularly pretty or anything. And by comparison, like coming to London felt like so exciting. And for a while, I worked as a nanny, and then I started working for a property management company, and then I managed to expand it. And it was doing like so well. And I burned myself so badly that after 5 years, I felt like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. So it's almost like I gave up mentally. Like I was, still running the business, but I kind of like stopped being interested in kind of growing it. And then I started doing publishing, but and I had this big goal of impacting millions of people and so on. But it's almost like I still haven't unfrozen from that decision that I made like years ago of like quitting, like almost like quitting mentally. And then I had some business disappointments in 2020 where people scammed me, people didn't pay me, people still haven't paid me, So it's almost like I still haven't been able to come out of this feeling of like, the world is still scary and people can't be trusted. And although there have been a lot of circumstances where people did pay me and they were great and they were nice people, and it's almost like I don't trust myself. Like I don't trust myself to choose the people that are narcissists from non-narcissists. I'm afraid of people again. So I'm wondering, how does someone like me go from, like feeling courageous and feeling confident, and then kind of like having these, business setbacks, and then feeling again like, oh my God, I can't trust myself because look at me, I'm choosing these narcissists, I'm choosing these people that don't pay me, I'm choosing these people that are mistreating me. How do I kind of navigate the situation?
Do you have an answer for that one?
I have lots of cool thoughts. But
I have lots of cool thoughts, but they're I think they're coming back to what I've said before. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's hard to endure the consequences of traumatic events, and oftentimes we don't think of little disappointments, little betrayals as being necessarily traumatic, but when those are consistently, it's like when we stub our toe in the middle of the night going to the fridge for a glass of milk. It seems like once we stub our toe on the coffee table, everything painful finds that toe, right? And the idea of sabotage and procrastination, really from our model, are indicators of unhealed trauma. And the consequence of unhealed trauma is shame. Shame is a very, very powerful and particular kind of energy. And it's also an energy that's very, very false. The reason why I say that is because the human psyche, as far as we've experienced, does not have a natural capacity to feel shame. Newborn babies are born with no capacity for shame. Everything that they do, everything that they express is authentic and in the moment. So shame is a taught behavior. When we sabotage, when we procrastinate, part of what our nervous system is trying to do, our energetic system is trying to do, is trying to give us an indicator of where we still need to heal. So ultimately, when we can recognize and even just accept the possibility that shame is an energy that kills joy, and that we were taught to, first of all, by how we were treated, we were taught that our joy, which is connected to our self-worth, was not valuable. And then we get taught that so thoroughly through consistent traumatic experience in our childhood that we start to shame ourselves. We start to kill our own joy before anybody else does. Because if we want to try and find a way to be safe in a very dangerous world, then we have to be prepared to handle shame wherever we encounter it. But if it's been instilled in us, then the person who's shamed us into that understanding and into that habit doesn't even have to be there anymore. They don't even have to be actively trying to participate with us in a shameful way. They've instilled it in our brain and our nervous system so deeply that we do it to ourselves. So one of the things that we've got to do in restoring a person's ability to connect to their self-worth and to experience their own courage is to stop that shame spiral, because unchecked, it will keep running in the background in our subconscious in very sophisticated ways that, if we're not aware of how to read its presence, will debilitate us and we leave us not knowing why.
Thank you. Does that mean we're supposed to become comfortable with shame? So I remember, like, when I was 4 years old, I spoke on stage for the very first time in front of 2,000 people. And actually, it would be incorrect to say that I spoke, because I couldn't remember what my name was and I couldn't remember the song I was supposed to sing. So I remained with the trauma of the massive crowd of 2,000 people, parents and children, like, laughing at me because I couldn't remember anything, despite the prompts of the presenter. And then, I got beaten before and after as well, in the first time to remember the lyrics, and afterwards because I didn't remember the lyrics. So the shame of that, kind of like, I find it recurring everywhere. Like, every time I organize an event with hundreds of people, like, I go there, I look great, I perform, but it's like there's this struggle. It's almost like pushing this big car uphill where things, fail at the last second, and there's no taxi when you're supposed to go to the event. I don't know. There's so many different things that kind of seem to go wrong. And then there's this shame where I feel like I didn't perform well enough. I wasn't perfect. So what are you supposed to do? Like, just accept that the shame will be there and just embrace it and just be vulnerable around the fact that, okay, today I didn't perform 100% and I did this thing that is incredibly shameful, and should I just share it to my social media, or what is the
Those are awesome thoughts and great questions.
Yeah.
I've got an immediate answer, but I've
got a very short answer, and then I want your answer. My very short answer is, one of the most important things that we do with people is allow them to just acknowledge when something is true and when it's a lie. And shame is always lying. So just like when you say, sometimes I feel really courageous, and sometimes I don't have that feeling when I'm going out to do something. I would say the times then that you feel cowardly and you're doing it anyway, that's when you're actually being courageous. Courageous doesn't feel good all the time. Courageous means I am aware that I am terrified and I'm going to do it anyway. So we have this idea that we feel like we're, on a white horse charging forward, facing the battlefield. And most of the times it's us opening the door going, crap, 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 crap. That's when courage shows up the most. But I want to hear what you have to say about shame.
Yeah, I was going to say that one of the other factors, in a hopefully straightforward and simple way that we work with, is twofold. One, we've recognized over many decades together in this work and in our individual work that most people have never genuinely been encouraged in their lives. In fact, it's quite the opposite. And that's where shame is used as a tool of control. And oftentimes we are subjected to being shamed for things, and the person that's doing that to us doesn't know any better. Why? Because they were shamed in that way. And they carry that shame and they think, well, the people that were supposed to be looking after me said that this was the best thing for me to follow, and they controlled me and hammered me with shame. So that's love, I guess. So I'm going to do that to the people that I'm in charge of raising or rearing or interacting with, because I don't know any better. When we understand that most people are operating on an automatic loop of their own shame that they've never dealt with, it becomes much easier to recognize that someone's intent to shame you is actually more reflective of them and where they are in relation to their own self-worth than it is to you. One of the other components of that whole idea around encouragement and shame is that people don't differentiate the difference between guilt and shame, right? Guilty is different than shameful, because guilty is a judgment based upon what actions you have taken or not taken, what you've done. Okay. I can say, oh, I spilled the milk when I came home from school and I forgot to clean it up because I had to go to the bathroom. And then my dad came in and yelled at me, which actually happened many times. But yes, I'm guilty of spilling the milk, but that's only a commentary on the action that I took, my behavior, what I did. Shame is a much more devastating and impactful kind of energy, because it tells you that, no, your actions are bad. You are bad. You're not valuable. Maybe not, right? And that's different than guilt. Guilt is, oh, my actions were maybe not the best, or that was not valuable, or I did something wrong. But when we start moving into the territory of shame and telling a person that they are fundamentally not of any value, that's where we run into the devastating effects of trauma that can happen over a long period of time, because hearing that message consistently teaches you that you need to be disconnected from your self-worth. If someone's telling you all the time that you're not valuable, it's very hard to feel that way. And in our childhoods, when we're in our most vulnerable years, hearing that message too often is the thing that leaves us in that disconnected state. That's why encouragement, when we teach people literally the word encouragement, to enter their courage, to go back to their self-worth, to feel their value and experience it themselves, that's why that's such an important process, or component in the process of helping elevate a person out of shame and disconnection.
Thank you. Tell us where entrepreneurs can connect with you.
We are at thedigitaldojo.net and Digital Dojo with Dana and Colleen, which when we named it, which I still love the name because you're walking into the dojo, but you're doing it emotionally and energetically rather than physically. But I didn't think of how it sounded when you had to say it repeatedly. And it takes a while to say thedigitaldojo.net.
Makes you focus.
So we've got videos on there. We've got a class coming up on happiness actually in September, and all of our contact info is on there, all of our socials. We'd love to see people there.
Follow me for more interviews with world's most innovative health change makers to live your healthiest life ever.